Now with machine learning, we want to get away from the word standard. I mean, standards are good to be able to analyze where you at, where you should be. But with machine learning, what we want the programs to do now is from the history, learn and be able to do those predictions. We're talking about hatchability, fertility, weight projections, etc. So think about the new way for us to get away from using factors and standards to try to predict the future.
All right, welcome everyone. This is MTech Podcast. My name is Nikolai Shitikhin. I have Jim Johnston here, and we also have a wonderful guest today. It's Marcel Cohen. Hello, gents. How are you doing?
Hi, Nick.
Very good.
Hi, it's great to have you on, Marcel. Really cool that you could spend the time to talk to us today. Marcel Cohen's our second guest on the podcast, and Marcel's the president of MTech Systems. So great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Marcel, I'd like to start with asking my traditional question. How did you start with the industry? How do you end up in poultry and swine and in all that? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a kind of funny question because it goes back to when I was a young boy growing up. My dad was in the poultry industry. This is how it all started. He worked for the genetic companies. He switched between Arbor Acres. He worked for Ross. He worked for ESA. So both me and Simon, we travel with my dad all the time to visit the farms, to work with him. And that indirectly was the way we got into the poultry industry. And yeah, I mean, my dad was able to convince us to go and visit these farms by trying to get us to do other things. Like maybe we get to visit and do go-kart riding or something like that to give us some interest on going to visit these farms. And when I graduated from college, in reality, I did not want to be part of the poultry industry because I've done so much of it growing up. And that's the story.
You grew up with the chickens. So where was the idea that came to start MTech? Where did that all come from then?
Good question, Jim. I mean, that actually came from my dad too. So I graduated electrical engineering. And like I just said, I wanted nothing to do with poultry industry. I was kind of tired of it. And I wanted to get more into the electrical world, both inside with computers or with power plants. But my dad said that he was traveling all over Latin America. That was his market. He was selling the day-old chick. And he said there was nothing out there to manage the farms. At that moment, everybody was using either paper and pen or Excel, something like that. We're talking about early 90s. So he said, why don't you not put together software, something for these people to manage the farms? And I said, I don't want anything to do with this. But he convinced me, and he hooked me up with some guy that was working with his company at that time was Arbor Acres, and that was Mike Walker. So long story short, I visited Mike, Arkansas, and started to work together. And from two people, we started to build a company to create a software that was designed to manage the poultry companies. At that moment, there was nothing about planning. It was all about just tracking the information because everything was in paper and pen.
Oh, wow. That's a great story, Marcel. And, you've been plenty of years in this industry and now software is everywhere. Everything is software, everything is an app, and MTech is developing. So what are the main drivers to keep up with this fast growing world?
Well, I mean, the thing is the continuous change of the industry. I mean, we have been and will continue to be the leaders, the best in breed in this space. And it's always changing. I mean, we're going from at one point, the way the animals were growing to now we're talking a lot more about animal welfare. We're talking about sustainability that we might discuss later on in this conversation, in this podcast. But anyways, MTech is always looking ahead for all customers, and we continuously have to change in order to meet what the demand is asking for.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, that 30 years or more than 30 years now, I guess, is a heck of a time in the poultry industry. If you look at the changes that we've seen and experienced of genetics, the improvement in the bird performance, the feeding, nutrition, the equipment changes in that period of time have been tremendous in improving the performance of the whole business and making it much more competitive. what about the software? I can remember in the late 70s dealing with floppy disks and stuff. That was my first experience of data and managing that. And you must have seen a lot of changes. What's happened in that period for the software?
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about a huge journey. I mean, just even the whole company. I mean, at first, our goal was just to record information, capture information at the farm. It was done, like you said, floppy disks. It was done in a DOS version of the software. Eventually, we got into Visual Basic. Eventually, we got into hard drives. Then we got into communication, connecting. But it's not just that the equipment was changing. The software was also changing. The databases were changing. The speed of the internet, not even the internet, we didn't have that, but the speed of the communication was changing. But also the industry started to drive, which was what Nikolai asked earlier, that actually started to change what we were doing. The company became from just recording information to actually planning the systems. We had to now get into a whole new thing and helping our customers be able to do a better job at supply chain, to do the forecasting, the projection. So what a massive journey has been. And every time I think we get to a comfort zone and I say, you know what, we're there. I think we have what we need. I think we have achieved and we're helping. A whole new thing comes up. And it's like we started the company over and over again, just like we're going through right now. I mean, it never stops moving. And that's why I keep telling everybody that that's the thing about MTech. Because of our exposure worldwide, because of our penetration in the industry, it will never stop. If it ever stops, that's the end of this company. We have to continuously innovate in both the technology side and also in the industry, what we're talking about, which is both poultry and swine.
Yeah, that's great. And so many changes, like you said, and it's in technology and in the industry in general. What do you think were the main milestones that changed the company and changed the industry? For example, when we got mobile internet, then we were able to do mobility solutions, or now we have AI and now we can do all those other crazy things. So what do you think are the main milestones?
There were some huge ones. The first one was going to a real database, a big centralized database. It was very difficult to develop the software with decentralized, small, let's call it arcade or not powerful databases, like in Microsoft Access. One of the biggest milestones was when MTech moved to a big centralized database. We use both Oracle and SQL. That was huge because now all the information was in one place. We were able to change the entire database to have all the information and everything available in one place, which made traceability huge. That was the driver of that. Of course, we went through the Y2K moments back then, and that was big for MTech too. We were compliance early in the game. But then the biggest milestone, of course, is the internet came in, the speed came in, and then we were able to bring information directly from the farm via cell phones or tablets, and that opened up a whole new line of products, providing our customers real-time information. So the classic piece of paper that had to be keyed in a week later and stuff like that. Now we're talking about what happened today at the farm. Let's do something tomorrow. Now we're talking about even bigger changes with artificial intelligence, machine learning that we're doing. We're changing all our algorithms from just a simple heuristic logic to using now reinforcement learning. So these are key milestones. So I would say from the database to the internet, to the mobility, to the machine learning are the biggest all. And I don't want to leave the one that we're working very hard right now, which is the IoT, which is all the devices. That is going to change for us in the next, say, 5 to 10 years, everything. It's going to change the game one more time because it's more about, we don't want to waste the time doing data entry. We want to put all this time and effort into analyzing the information, making decisions, and improving the business line.
Well, right. Hey, I mean, that's a heck of a journey. Hey? And you talk about innovation and things have changed obviously enormously. And I guess, MTech's perhaps been seen historically as a software that fits large integrated businesses. I guess that's where your initial customers were. I mean, what's the innovations that might help us spread that to smaller companies, even down to farmers? I mean, where's the company heading?
Good question. So what we realized that we've invested 25 years into the integrators. Our software is really designed as a large ERP solution, and we never went after medium and small customers, even a grower. So what we decided to do, we started this journey about 3 years ago, and we built a product called Amino. The coolest thing about Amino is Amino sits on top of the entire 25 years of knowledge, technology, business line, everything that we have done for 25 years. Amino sits on top. So the game doesn't change as far as all the business rule. But what Amino does, being a web-based product, it actually simplifies everything to a level that we can actually create 3 layers of software. We can go after a grower, an independent grower. We can go after a small integrator. Of course, we still want to have our space in the large business integrators. And what Amino does is we have then, based on those licenses, we can change what the customer has to do, what the experience looks like. So we automate a lot of things in the back that is more in line for somebody that runs a big IT department or it has a group of people that can manage master data. We get rid of all that logic and we automate all that behind it. So now MTech can actually go after individual growers. This is really, really exciting for us because we're learning a lot as we move forward through all these different levels of customers now, what we can do. And I believe this is the next 10 years of our software. It's going to be all by running Amino.
All right, that's brilliant. So it's not only large integrators, but smaller farmers. And of course, you saying that there are so much technology going into the software right now. And you already mentioned that next 5-10 years will be all AI and IoT. And those are things that everybody's talking about right now. But do you see that what is the next big thing? What will be driving the industry in software for the next, 10, 15 years maybe? What will be the next thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. It's always hard to try to predict the future like that, 15 years. I do know we're going to have a big move into getting away of the traditional software data entry thing. I mean, everything keeps moving more and more in the direction of point of entry and automation. We're very lucky to be part of the Munters team, and they're continuously looking at equipment that we can keep adding to the farms so we can reduce the dependency and be able to do this real time. I mean, we're talking about cameras. We're talking about all the different sensors that we're putting out there on the farms. And we're even working with universities with new algorithms. What I do see is also a big push on environmental sustainability, animal welfare. Yep, today, especially in countries like the United States and Latin America, there is no big driver on that. But with everything that we have gone through in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months here with the pandemic and other things, you can see that there is a lot of people pushing for other industries. And this is going to put the pressure for our customers to get more involved in environmental sustainability, to care more. Today, it's all based on money. So it's a difficult proposition, unlike in Europe, where the retailers are driving this. So it makes it easier to justify this kind of investment. But on the other side, what I do see by leveraging the technologies that we use today for machine learning and reinforcement learning, which is part of the machine learning group, we're going to be able to improve a lot the supply chain. We're doing that already. We're changing all our systems from just a heuristic logic, which is the rule base that we have had for 25 years, projecting a kill schedule, feed scheduling, processing planning optimization. Anything that we do for our customers that we've been doing for the last 25 years, now we're going to be able to take it to the next level using reinforcement learning. And just a quick story because it's fun for me. I mean, I've been developing for 25 years, and I always have to program something by telling the computer what to do. So basically, you say, "Hey, listen here. If the bird is organic, for example, we need to kill that first at the processing plant. So I got to put rules. And if we send 2 crews to the farm, you cannot go then to another place, and because of this and that. So you start putting all these rules. With reinforcement learning, was the first time I can just put in the computer the rules of the game, just like a chess game. You can only move the pieces this way. Once I put those rules in, the computer actually learns as it plays more and more and more, which in our case, if we were talking about life haul scheduling, you can imagine that if I say, hey, I want you to solve this life haul schedule problem that I got for these multiple plants. So then the computer will play the same game over and over and over again that one day until it learns what's the best way to use the crews, the trucks, the drivers, the speed of the line, the type of products. It's so exciting for me. I can't tell you what this has done for MTech. I mean, it changes everything we have done in 25 years. And I like to end this one point by saying everything we did also was based on standards. You know, companies have company standards, and then you have also the genetic line standards. Like Ross can give you a standard, or Acres has a standard. All the different birds will have a different standard. And that's what we use, not just to compare, but also to predict. Now with machine learning, we want to get away from the word standard. I mean, standards are good to be able to analyze where you at, where you should be. But with machine learning, what we want the programs to do now is from the history, learn and be able to do those predictions. We're talking about hatchability, fertility, weight projections, et cetera. So think about the new way for us to get away from using factors and standards to try to predict the future.
Yeah, that's amazing, Marcel. We can see that you're really excited about all this machine and reinforcement learning.
I am. This is, I'm telling you right now, for me, it's so cool. I mean, I actually got away from programming. Being the president of the company, I need to get more into managing and growing the company, looking for new opportunities. But I just couldn't put this down. I mean, the reinforcement learning was something that just kind of like a magnet. It got me back into the programming. I'm working with the programming team, and I'm actually developing right now a model for our what we call the supply chain management. So it goes from breeding, from the breeder planning assistant, all the way to the processing plan. And it's one of the things I've always wanted to build. As we all know, we have everything modular. We have one thing for breeding. We have one module for life haul schedule. We have a module for the harvesting. What I want to build is one program that can do it all. And that is, I couldn't do this before with heuristic logic, but now with reinforcement learning and neural networks, we can do this. So it's very exciting for me.
Well, that's a big task. That's a really big task.
Yeah, I mean, that is exciting. It's a real journey you've taken us on in the last few minutes. Marcel, thanks very much for sharing that with us. I mean, from going around the chicken farms with your dad when you were a kid to founding the business to helping customers with just data collection and database, and now to leveraging data all the way through to artificial intelligence and how the future is kind of looking. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. And it's been a great few minutes talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Marcel, for joining us. And for those who are watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, please feel free to join us on social media. We are on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Twitter. And of course, visit our website. And Marcel, thank you very much again. Hope we'll get you on another episode.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Nikolai. Have a good day.
Thanks, cheers. Marcel. See you next week, Nick.